If you find yourself avoiding voice comms in Mythic Plus or raiding because you feel awkward or nervous, this video is for you. Because you might be missing out on some of the most fulfilling experiences World of Warcraft has to offer. A lot of players assume that joining voice comms means that you need to immediately sound confident, constantly have something to say, or seamlessly fit into a group of basically strangers, and that can be really hard for someone who is introverted or socially anxious, which, let's be honest, is a lot of us. WoW players aren't exactly known for touching a lot of grass. But after doing a lot of Mythic Plus and raiding in voice, despite being a socially anxious person myself, I genuinely think that a lot of people overestimate how socially demanding it actually is. In reality, with the right mindset and a bit of structure, voice comms can become much easier than they seem. A few simple habits, a handful of useful callouts, and understanding that you don't need to be the most vocal person in the call can go a very long way. So today, let's break down why voice comms in WoW can feel so intimidating in the first place. Some scripted callouts that I think make coordinating much easier for an anxious mind, and how to ease yourself into an online social space without feeling like you need to completely change your personality. Honestly, it turns out that the comms tricks that work for anxious people are also just themselves very efficient tricks. So even my relaxed viewers will likely get something out of this as well. Towards the end, I'll also show how I've structured my own Mythic Plus community to make this process feel much more welcoming and supportive for players of all kinds. Before we get into how to actually approach voice comms, I think it's helpful to understand why they feel so intimidating in the first place, because understanding this can itself alleviate a lot of the stress. I'll try not to go full armchair psychologist here, although to be fair, I did study psychology at university for 4 years, so I might as well make some use of that degree. For most people, I think a lot of the anxiety around WoW comms comes from a fear of social disapproval. At a very deep human level, we are hardwired to care about how other people respond to us. We evolved in tribes where these instincts literally had life and death consequences. The problem is that when you jump into a Discord call with players who you don't know very well, this instinct can start to kick in. Suddenly, it feels like every word you're saying has been evaluated. Was that call out stupid? Did I talk too much? Does my voice sound weird? Am I mouth breathing into my mic at the moment? Even when you're silent, you can feel like you're being too silent, which all of this is pretty hard when you're trying your best to just focus on playing the game as well. I think that's what makes comms feel so much scarier than what they actually are, especially when you're joining a group that already seems pretty comfortable with each other, or you're joining an environment like a guild or a Mythic Plus friend group that already feels really settled. But here's the important part. That feeling is usually much bigger in your mind than in reality. Most people in comms are not hyper-analyzing every word that you say. They're mostly thinking about their own gameplay, or their own mistakes, or their own cooldowns, or in the case of most DPS players, they're literally not thinking at all. Hang on, I'm a DPS player. The goal in understanding this is to not magically become fearless and transform into some ultra charismatic gamer overnight. The goal is to recognize that a lot of this discomfort is a normal, instinctive human response, and then stop treating comms like some sort of social performance that you have to ace. A huge part of getting more comfortable in comms is realizing that you don't need to be constantly talking or filling dead air or trying to impress the group. In most cases, there's actually far less pressure than what a lot of anxious or stressed people assume. One thing that I think helps a lot, especially early on, is realizing that there's absolutely no rule saying that you need to join a comms channel and immediately become super talkative. A lot of anxious players seem to assume that once they click join, they now need to be on the whole time, like constantly contributing or filling silences. In reality, that's not how it actually tends to work. When you first join a call, a short greeting is usually more than enough. Literally just a casual yo or hey or what's up is completely fine. You don't need to launch into the conversation or introduce yourself or start performing to the room or anything like that. Just saying something small breaks the ice at the start, shows the other people that you're there, and gets past what is often the hardest bit, which is just getting in there in the first place. From there, you can make life a lot easier on yourself by setting up the mute button in a way that is accessible during gameplay. I personally use caps lock as a toggle, so this means that I can quickly mute and unmute mid-combat, and this takes away a surprising amount of stress. Once you're in a call, there is nothing wrong with keeping things very simple at first as well. You can mostly just listen, respond if someone asks you a direct question, and otherwise just leave it there. That's enough to start building your own comfort within that space. You don't need to force chatter just because you're there. In fact, for a lot of people, the best way to ease into comms is not by trying to be more social all at once. It's by lowering the expectations on yourself and then giving yourself small jobs to do within the call. Join, say a quick hello, respond when needed, and then once you've settled in a little, you can then layer in a few call outs of your own. That's where I want to go next, because if you are someone who gets anxious in voice, having a few simple, repeatable, and scripted shot calls can go a long way to making it feel less intimidating. And hell, even if you are comfortable in comms already, these lines are so short and sharp that they're actually pretty universally useful as well. So let's take a look at my short list of comms callouts for Mythic Plus. Raiding is a little different, as you can often rely solely on the raid leader. In fact, in raid, you can literally sit muted the entire time if you want. I've raided for years with some players and I've literally never heard them speak. This is a very normal thing. Let's start out with a really simple one, calling for an external. Let's say that you're about to die to a mechanic and you don't have an ability to look after yourself. You might say something along the lines of external for Boggy, or whatever your in-game name is. Short, clear, instantly useful. For all of these things going forward, it is a good idea to put your character name in your short callouts as well, because people won't recognize your voice immediately. Another really common one is kick and stop order, something like next kick diamond or whatever marker you're using, or my blind next. These are super quick, they're super clear, and they help a lot with coordination without having to talk too much. One of my favorites is actually the super flexible care callouts. They're great because they're so short and they can apply to so many different things. So you use the word care, and then the word after it is something like care feet, which is like watch for things on the ground. Care threat, you need to watch out for threat. Care frontal, look out for the frontal. The word care is basically shorthand for watch out for this. You can also use short callouts for incoming damage, especially if you're a healer. A really useful one here is defensive's next slam, or whatever ability it is that's coming up. This tells the group that something dangerous is about to happen and you don't have a cooldown for it. On the flip side, if you've already got that upcoming ability covered, you can also say the opposite of no defensive's next slam, so that people don't panic and then use a defensive that they might need a little bit later in the fight when they didn't need to use it at that moment. As a DPS, one that's surprisingly useful is calling your priority target. Something like Prio and then mob name. I don't know what the mob is. Prio Violasher or Prio Skull. This is helpful for making sure that the group is coordinating damage into the same mob when you all need to be attacking the same mob. It also lets the tank know that they need to be careful of that mob, because especially if you're playing something with a lot of funnel, like Retribution Paladin, the tank might lose threat if they're not main targeting it. So this can let them know that they need to watch that mob more than the rest. Another favorite is panic callouts. I personally like I'm in trouble. You can also use something like I need help. This is just a surefire way to let your healer know that you need some extra attention. It can also be good if you don't want to think too much about externals. It's pretty much just, oi, I need help, someone help me. And finally, we've got mechanic callouts. So this is something that you would use when you've got a specific mechanic covered with an ability. Something like, Old Bubble next Glaive Toss, or Old Dwarf next Bleed. This is really good because it stops the party from wasting tools or abilities on something that is already solved by something that you're going to do. Now, this might appear to just be good comms practice, and it kind of is, but there's a big bonus here for people who are a bit anxious in voice. All of these are scripted. You can have this little internal dictionary of common calls, quickly unmute yourself. So for me, that would be with like caps lock, shot call, and then mute again. You've just provided useful information that will help your group succeed in the key that you're doing, without adding too much stress of having to think about exactly what you need to say. As an added way of helping more nervous players connect with like-minded people and building lasting Mythic Plus teams, I've also created some specific sections in my Discord community server. I announced the Mythic Plus Team Finder in a video over the weekend, and it has absolutely popped off. For those that missed it, this is an area in the server where players can find and connect with other M+ players, with the option of then forming teams that get access to private text channels and comms channels within the server. Even in the few days since I officially launched this, we've already seen groups start to form and play together, which is genuinely so cool. If you want access to this after joining my Discord server, you can check out the role assignment area on the sidebar. On the topic of social anxiety, that same role assignment channel also gives you optional access to the Nervous Homies area. This part of the server is specifically for players who feel a little bit more anxious when interacting with others. The goal is to create a space where people know that they're not the only ones that feel a little bit shy, awkward, or introverted, and then allow players with that sort of personality to grow and support their confidence together, effectively making connections in a safe, low-pressure environment. So this area includes things like low-pressure channels, community chat spaces, and a few bots that help with things like icebreakers and prompt a little bit of conversation. Because honestly, sometimes all we need is just a little bit of a nudge as well. If you're a bit nervous, but you still want to use the Mythic Plus Team Finder section, you can also tag your post with "a little nervous" to let other people know that you're a bit shy. That makes it easier to find the right kinds of people to play with, and hopefully helps more players end up in groups where they actually feel comfortable speaking up. Who knows, maybe you can all use some of the comms tips from this video in the same voice call. A quick shout out to my YouTube, Twitch, and Buy Me a Coffee supporters, The Joy of Checks, Tobias, and Yalem at the Keystone Legend tier, as well as everyone else for supporting the channel. That's all from me. I hope you found this video beneficial. See you all in Azeroth. Until next time, take care.